Kwagube. I am the DA's national spokesperson. This morning, we are coming to you live from Nelson Mandela Bay. We've got exciting news. DA leader John Steenhuisen will be announcing our mayoral candidates for the 5 key cities around the country. From Cape Town to Johannesburg to Tshwane to Ekurhuleni to Nelson Mandela Bay, you will hear first this morning who your mayoral candidates are going to be. We take this process seriously. We want you to know who you will be voting for in the local government elections. When we ask you to lend us your vote, we want you to know exactly who will be the person who will be taking our offer to every corner of your city. Now stay tuned. The DA chairperson, Dr. Ivan Meyer, will be giving us the process and the rundown of how we got here before the DA leader speaks to us.
South Africa is at a political, economic and social crossroads. Wherever we turn, be it in the paper, on the radio, on television, news abounds about corruption scandals, service delivery issues, job losses, electricity or fuel hikes. The list goes on. From Douglas in the North Cape, Mdatsane in the Eastern Cape, Houghton in Jozi, to Schweizer-Reneke in the Northwest, communities urgently need capable leaders that get things done. In December 2019, the DA began a process to identify and select the best possible leaders we can offer communities as councillors. Through our world-class potential candidates program, applicants had to complete 5 modules to ensure that they are fit for purpose and are aware of the high standards expected from DA councillors. After a thorough screening process, each aspirant candidate then had to appear before a selection panel. The selection panels then tested their values, their local government knowledge, political skills, and the capacity to lead and manage complex issues that communities face every day across South Africa. Over 6,000 applicants were received and selection panels were set up across the country from February 2021 to ensure that all processes and procedures were followed fairly. The DA's Federal Candidate Election Committee went over the outcomes of every single panel. Only after that were the lists finally signed off by the relevant provincial executives and then presented to the party's highest decision-making body for submission to the Independent Electoral Commission. And for those who want to serve as DA mayors, the process opened in November 2020. Every aspirant mayor had to complete a practical assignment, then followed by interviews before a mayoral selection panel, which were then held between April and August 2021. Our processes are thorough because we simply want to offer South Africa the very best. We have done our homework and we are ready to present our candidates and take on the ANC in municipalities across South Africa, as well as to defend the municipalities we are already leading. Only the DA is committed to building a capable state. Only the DA has the national footprint big enough to be able to represent every person in every community across South Africa, big enough to challenge the dominance of the ANC, and also big enough to bring the DA difference to your town and your district. I invite you to come and join us across South Africa. Come on our journey and let us get things done wherever you live across South Africa.
Good morning, everybody, once again. And so the moment that we have been waiting for, we were going to have DA leader John Steenhuisen giving a short speech, and also during that speech, he will be announcing our mayoral candidates for 5 major cities in the country. John, without further ado, over to you.
Good morning, everybody, and to my fellow citizens. It's a huge pleasure and privilege to address you here today at the announcement of the DA's candidates for mayors of South Africa's major cities in the upcoming local government elections. We in the Democratic Alliance feel that this is an important part of the democratic process. We have a duty to let voters know well ahead of the elections who will be tasked with running their cities and their towns, should we win in those municipalities or secure a majority share in a coalition government. Now, democracy isn't just about casting your vote on election day. The journey actually starts long before the ballot box. The word democracy itself comes from 2 Greek words, demos, which means people, and kratos, which means rule. It's literally government by the people. And for this to have any real meaning, the people need to play an active role. This means knowing exactly who you're going to be voting for. It means being able to interrogate the offer of a candidate so that the choice made on election day is an informed choice. It's about listening to what the candidates have to say and then challenging the parts you don't agree with or simply don't believe. It's about knowing what your options are, because otherwise, what exactly are you weighing up? What are their plans for your towns or your city? If they're an incumbent and you feel they've done a poor job so far, they must be given an opportunity to answer for this. And if they're a new candidate and perhaps unknown to voters, there has to be a way and enough time to get to know them. Ideally, you want to see your 2 or 3 front-runner candidates testing their offers against each other. Parties that back their candidates and believe in their offer look forward to this type of engagement in the build-up to an election. They're very eager for voters to ask them for more details or press them on things that they're unsure about or simply don't agree with. But parties that don't believe in their candidates, or even worse, cannot actually arrive at a name because internal contestation is so fraught and toxic that these parties then hide behind a veil of anonymity right up until election date. At the DA, we've spent an entire year on our candidate selection process. This has included extensive interviews, practical assignments and assessments by independent panels to get to the point where we can confidently say today that these are the people we trust to bring the DA's vision to life in local government. Now, please, I expect the public of South Africa to ask them everything that they would like to know. We've long held the view that if we want to fix this country, we have to start by building a capable state. And this means that governments are made up of fit-for-purpose individuals who are not tainted by corruption and who have demonstrated that they have the commitment and the drive that any good public servant needs. That's why our candidate process is so rigorous. It's because we cannot afford to get it wrong. We also believe fundamentally that voters should be given enough time to get to know these candidates. Now, whether the elections go ahead at the end of October, as they've been proclaimed, or whether the courts decide that they need to be moved to early next year, this will give voters more than enough opportunity to do their election homework. Now, you'll notice that very few other parties have done this. The only other party to govern in municipalities and metros, the ANC, certainly does not seem to have any desire to let you know who its mayoral candidates are. And this is a shame, because South African voters deserve far better from this hard-won democracy. They deserve a proper government by the people, where they get to play an active role all the way up to election day. Now, it's still not too late for this to happen. And so today, from this podium, I'd like to challenge the ANC to do what we've done for the sake of our democracy. Make this election the open contest it was always meant to be. Put your candidates out there in front of the people alongside ours. It won't be hard to find us. For the next few months, we're going to be out there on the ground every day. And I'm going to be personally spending a lot of time with each of the candidates we announce here today, taking our message of hope and change to communities across the country. So I'm calling on the ANC to meet us there, whether it's in a town hall debate, a televised debate, or a debate on the radio. Name your candidate and let the voters interrogate them together with ours. That's what a real democracy looks like. Fellow citizens, if we've ever needed this kind of open, engaging election campaign, it is now. I don't need to tell you that the state of so many of our towns and cities is absolutely dire. Dozens of municipalities across South Africa have completely collapsed under the weight of corruption and predatory cadre-deployed governments, and hundreds of more are on the verge of collapse. The problem is so big that placing these distressed municipalities under administration and running them by remote control is simply not feasible, because there are frankly just too many of them. This situation is not normal. We can no longer pretend that the total implosion of service delivery and infrastructure in these towns and cities is normal. We cannot pretend that it is normal for companies and their factories to have to relocate at great cost and with massive job losses because they cannot be guaranteed the very basics of service delivery, like water, electricity, and usable roads. We cannot pretend that it is normal for municipalities to owe water and power utilities billions and billions of rands. We cannot pretend that a river of sewage running down a street where children play is normal. We cannot pretend that it is perfectly normal for hundreds of municipalities to rack up billions of rands in irregular and unauthorized spending every single year, and to never, not even once, get a stamp of clean governance from the Auditor General. We cannot pretend that daily protests in multiple communities against an invisible, unresponsive government is normal. None of these things are normal. What is normal, though, or what should be, is a government that either responds by fixing these things or is fired and replaced by another government that is prepared to fulfill the objectives, the 5 simple objects of the local government as set out in Section 152 of our Constitution. And that's what needs to happen now. Voters need to start firing and hiring governments. And there's no other way to undo what has happened to these broken municipalities other than this. There are no other shortcuts. So why should voters trust the people that I'm going to be announcing today and who'll be joining me on this stage to run their towns and cities, rather than the ANC or any of the other smaller parties? What does the DA offer in government that the other parties don't? Well, let me perhaps start by telling you what the DA doesn't offer. The DA's offer is not some fading struggle history or similar stories from the past, because none of that can fix what needs to be fixed right now. The DA's offer is not that it looks or speaks like a certain type of person. Some parties are going to come to you and try to convince you that you can only be represented by somebody who is from your own race, your own culture, or speaks your language. But that kind of racial nationalism and identity politics cannot fix what needs to be fixed right now. And the DA's offer is also not every imaginable pie-in-the-sky promise of free things. Parties that do this know that they will never ever be in government, and so they never ever have to deliver on their promises. They promise everything to everyone without ever doing the maths. And that's no way to fix what needs to be fixed right now. Now, the DA is a forward-looking party. We acknowledge the injustice of the past, but we make plans for the future. We must acknowledge the past, but we must own the future. The DA is also a party of ideas and values, not identity, which is also why we are the most diverse party by far in South Africa. The DA is also an actual party of government. This means we're in the business of making government work by carefully planning how every rand is spent for the benefit of the people, not the politicians. Now, it's easy to call yourself a revolutionary party and just make things up. The DA operates in the real world. But above all, and most importantly, the DA is a party of results. Not past glories, not race, not populist promises, just results. Our achievements where we govern are what sets us miles and miles apart from any other party. And that's why our message to voters in this election campaign, and the message the candidates we'll meet today will take with them on the road, is that the DA gets things done. And that's all we want voters to judge us by. Because if you want to have the chance of turning these struggling municipalities around and giving people who live there hope for a better future, you must start by doing the actual job of a local government. And that's what our party does far better than anyone else. Well, the DA governs less than 10% of the municipalities across South Africa. But the top 5 are all DA run. All the failing municipalities are run by the ANC. DA municipalities consistently outstrip ANC municipalities when it comes to basic service delivery, clean audits, the maintenance of infrastructure, attracting investments, and most importantly, creating jobs. DA municipalities are at the forefront of protecting their residents from droughts and water shortages, as we saw in the world-class effort by the City of Cape Town to defeat Day Zero. Now compare this to the current water situation in places like Nelson Mandela Bay or in towns like Makanda and many other communities where Day Zero has already arrived for many people. DA municipalities are also leading the charge in shielding their residents to some degree from Eskom's failures and load shedding. Now, the City of Cape Town often manages to keep its electricity customers one full load shedding stage less than the rest of the country. And municipalities like Stellenbosch are innovating to become even less reliant on Eskom by taking steps to procure their power elsewhere. But nowhere has the direct link between good, clean governance and service delivery been more clear than right here in Nelson Mandela Bay. Following the 2016 local government election, the impact of the DA-led coalition was immediate. Roads were resurfaced, streetlights were fixed, and water infrastructure repaired. The city's integrated rapid bus transport service was launched along with the Metro Police. And importantly, the city's finances were turned around, and for the first time in years, a deficit became a surplus. Fast forward 2 years later, when the coalition of corruption ousted the DA-led coalition in a filthy council coup, and every single gain made in those 2 years under the DA-led coalition was reversed. Today, when we took power again, Nelson Mandela Bay was back where it had started before the DA took over. The city coffers have been stripped bare once more under the coalition of corruption. Now, the rise and the fall of service delivery in Nelson Mandela Bay perfectly matches the electing and eventual ousting of the DA government. And all this says to me is that we simply have to do it again. And this time we need to make sure that our majority is strong enough to withstand any coup by the corrupt. And that goes not just for Nelson Mandela Bay. We need to protect and bolster our majority wherever we govern so that we can continue our work uninterrupted. Just look at what happened in the city of Cape Town after the DA took over in 2006. For the first term, we were locked in a very tricky coalition arrangement, and our position as a government was always touch and go. But in the next election, we managed to stretch that majority far enough to govern outright. And this allowed us to start making the big gains that are only possible in back-to-back terms. Today, after 3 uninterrupted terms under a DA government, the City of Cape Town operates in a different league to any of the other metros in the country, and on every single criteria. Similarly, a municipality like Midvaal in Gauteng has enjoyed a decade of uninterrupted DA governance, and it's left its neighbouring municipalities run by the ANC in its dust. Why? Because the DA gets things done. It's that simple. And this is what we want to bring to every town and even more towns and cities across the country. That's why we've assembled an incredible team that you're going to meet shortly. The team that's going to get things done. I know them, and I know that they are not afraid of the hard work that lies ahead, not only in this election campaign, but also once they take office. I want to invite you to get to know them too. Look out for them on the road over the next few months. Follow them on social media. Understand what their plans are and see whether this aligns with your own ideas. Our country is in a very tough space right now. But I assure you, we will get through this. We will rebuild our communities, our towns and our cities into the vibrant, inclusive, growing places we've always dreamt of. We will grow our local economies again so that people have hope of finding jobs and building a future for themselves and their families wherever they live. We will reclaim our democracy from those who tried to steal it for their own selfish gains. And we will put those bad days behind us and look forward to the future with hope. But first, we need to put in place governments that live and breathe this vision. Governments that don't steal. Governments that serve the people, not the other way around. And I'm talking about DA governments that will get things done for you. Thank you very much. And now, without further ado, the moment I'm sure you've all been waiting for, the announcement of the team that's going to do all these things and to get things done for you in your town and your city. So I'm going to start with Ekurhuleni, the industrial and engineering hub of South Africa that has been so badly neglected by a mayor who couldn't care less about it and a council who cannot even keep the lights on. And so it gives me great pleasure to announce that the candidate for the Ekurhuleni municipality is Refilwe Nseke. In Tshwane, the capital city, the home of the Union buildings, where the DA hopes to certainly end up one day, we are going to continue to put our faith in the man who's led the turnaround, the man leading from the front, Mayor Randall Williams. In Johannesburg, the city of gold that's lost its shine through corruption, maladministration, and internal shenanigans. It needs a new start, and the person to lead that is Dr. Mpho Phalatse. Right here in Nelson Mandela Bay, where he led a coalition to take control and wrest the city from the coalition of corruption, for coming in as a candidate for the second time to be the mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay and your best hope of delivery and change in the city, Mayor Ngababanga. And finally and not least, to lead the DA's campaign, that fighting campaigner in Cape Town, Jordan Hill Lewis. I'm so proud to lead a party with these great candidates, and I look forward to being on the ground with them each and every day as we travel to every corner of your municipality to meet with you, to listen to your concerns, and share with you this DA message of hope and change, and about how the DA, together with this amazing team, is going to get things done for you. We've got the track record, we've got a promise of more. We look forward to convincing you that if you want to change South Africa, if you want to change your life, if you want to build a better future for your family and for yourselves, that if you want hope, there's a party that you can trust, and that party is the Democratic Alliance. Thank you very much.
And there you have it, the DA's mayoral candidates for the upcoming local government elections. And for those of you who've joined us on our live streams, thank you very much for joining us. We are now going to be moving over to the press conference, and so if members of the press could move over to that side, and we're going to have our mayoral candidates there to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.